I have to know how to respect you. You know, just because that is a very good, we want to respect, that is a very good intention, but something might be, in my understanding, showing respect, and to you it might be an insult. You see, so knowledge is very important when we speak of respect. You know, so our movement is primarily an educational movement. Educational movement. It's not a religious movement, religious sentimental movement. It's an educational movement. We're teaching people about who they are. About who they are.
Sir, I will stop you just so to ask if I can record what you say to me so I can make better notes of it.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I would hate to miss your education that you're giving me right now.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, you can ask the questions you like.
After, but yeah, please keep going about the movement and teaching about consciousness and respect.
Yes. So our movement is primarily educational movement. We're teaching people who they are. So that is not very much understood. We think that we're the body. That is our. That is the cause of our ignorance. I'm thinking of this body. I'm a man, woman, ugly, beautiful, tall, small, black, white, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian. There's so many departments, so many different groups, so many different sections. But we're missing the whole, the connection between every living entity. What is the connection between all of us? And that is that we actually, all of us, we're a spirit soul. We're consciousness. Now people, when they hear soul or spirit, spirituality, so on and so on, immediately they put it into yet another department, religion or belief, and so on and so on. So practically we find that there's no universal science of the self. And the Bhagavad Gita and our spiritual master, they've kindly come to fill up this gap. You know, the materialistic society is undoubtedly a great progress in material sense, technology, like right now, you know, we're utilizing the iPhone. So that is very nice. We don't. Krishna consciousness movement, we don't say our philosophy is not against material advancement, not at all. But we say that along with the material advancement, you should also develop a culture of how to utilize the material facilities. What is going on in the materialistic facilities? They expand. There's development, there's progress, but the qualification or the culture of an individual is degrading. Right? The individual is being impersonalized, and people are getting more and more animalistic. They're more degrading into lower consciousness. So Krishna consciousness movement is very much needed in present society, because along with the progress of material facilities, we can give the spiritual aspect of life, and not in a sentimental way, but in a scientific way. Just like Krishna, he explains very nicely in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Dehinosmi nyatadi komanam yovanam jara tatadiham tarapraptir dhiras tatrana muhyanti. This is the first teaching of spiritual life. We're not speaking of Hinduism or Buddhism or any sort of ism. This is a simple fact everyone can experience. In the past, we had a body of a small child. Now, that child's body is gone, finished. You know, you eat, you pass through, and the body is slowly, completely exchanged. So now the body you have right now is a completely different form as you had in your past life. Actually, it is a past life. You know, we're changing the body in this very lifetime. The reincarnation is not a faith, something that is going on. We can observe it. You know, the body, the change of the body, we can observe with our own senses. Empirical science. This is empirical science. So the body is changing, but I am not changed. I am still here. I am the observer of the change. When we speak of change, this is a relative terminology. So as soon as we admit there is change, there must be permanence. There must be permanence. Otherwise, change has no meaning. You follow what I'm saying? Change has no meaning. So as soon as we admit there is change, we can observe change, then simultaneously we have to accept the existence of permanence. So what is that permanence? Permanence is me, the consciousness. I am observing the change. I am not changed. If I am also changing with the body, then I will be dead and gone with the childhood's body, which is not the case. I am still here. I am observing. I have the experience of life. I have the experience of life. I can see all these different bodies in the context of my lifetime, right? So obviously there is an observer of the changing material phenomenon. So that is actually the spirit soul. That is spirit soul and
the Atma.
The Atma, yeah, that's right. And the spirit soul is eternal. Permanence means no beginning, no end. Know that at one point God created the soul, and then from then on we lived. Or, you know, after we go to hell, we're going to remain there eternally. No. Spirit soul means no beginning, no end. No end. It's eternal. So, ultimately, our nature is eternal, and no matter how much we try to enjoy on the material plane, or even research on the material plane, we can never satisfy our true self, because the satisfaction of the eternal self must come from eternal source, not a temporary source. That temporary source, temporary pleasures, that enjoyment is simply illusion. So that is our main practice, main teaching. You know, we're eternal, and this body is temporary, and we have eternal engagement.
I follow.
Okay, so that eternal engagement is a service to the Supreme Whole Personality. When we speak of the Supreme Whole, it must include everything what is within our experience and what is beyond our experience. Imagine everything within your experience, all the experiences you had in this lifetime, you know, since you were a little child, all the experiences. We can't even remember everything, you know, but just hypothetically, you can remember all of them. So just put it on one side. That's everything within your experience. Now, plus everything that you have never experienced, and probably you will never experience. Just take that. Everything that is beyond your experience. So these two combined together, that is the supreme whole, or the complete whole. And that is, according to the Vedas, Vedic scriptures, God. That is God. We're not discussing some belief or faith. Everyone has to accept the existence of these two. Everything within your experience, everything beyond your experience. You know, that should be clarified. We're not speaking of belief or religion or sentiment. We're discussing science. And when we understand the complete whole, the existence, there is the complete whole, there cannot be anything beyond. So then when we try to argue that, no, that is your opinion, I have a different, there's no question of different opinion. Whole means it includes everything. We have to remain in that whole, although that whole ultimately is unlimited. So, because it must include everything, what is within our experience, beyond our experience, the complete whole must be a person. Must be a person. not a person, then again, it's incomplete.
What do you mean by person?
Yes, that is another thing. But first of all, this should be understood, that the complete whole, it cannot be incomplete. It must include everything. So, because we have the experience of a personality, the complete whole must also have that facility. Just like you have your specific type of study. You selected in your course, in your university, a specific course, right? You could have studied something else, but because you're a person, you selected. You have your individuality, your tastes, and your distaste, your likes, your dislikes, right? A dead matter, something impersonal, doesn't have that personality. Doesn't have likes and dislikes and so on and so on. If we deny this facility to choose, to the or the facility of individuality, the facility of free will, the facility of choice to the Supreme Absolute Whole, again we're limiting the whole. Again, we have not understood what the complete whole is. So we accept that is actually revealed in the Vedic literatures that Supreme Personality is Krishna. Krishna means the all-attractive. God is all-attractive. He's not attractive to only a certain class of men, only to Christians or Muslims or so on and so on. God is attractive to everyone. That is real God. So Krishna, we have that information in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The full information about God is there. Now, if you say, no, Krishna is not God, then you bring your conception of God. Then you bring His form, His pastimes, His paraphernalia, everything, His philosophy. You bring a personality like that. Then we can decide who is God. Whether Krishna is God or your personality, whatever conception you have, is God. But unfortunately, there is no such a personality. So people are simply trying to deny, no, Krishna is not God. Krishna cannot be personality and so on and so on. But when we ask them, okay, so you bring, they are silent. So this is not actually very scientific. If we're not against discussion or debate. Just like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna's last appearance in this world. He's the founder of this Hare Krishna movement, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was ready to argue with the greatest scientist of those times, Prakashananda Saraswati, ahead of the impersonal school. They sat down and they were debating for days. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Prakashananda Saraswati also. They were debating for days, back and forth, but on the basis of some solid logic, not like dogs. Now people are arguing like dogs. And my opinion, I have my opinion, and I have a right to say my opinion. And no matter how foolish it is, I have the right, and now you have to respect me. No. Now, if your opinion is bogus nonsense, rascal number one, why should I respect it? Then my right is also to say that it's foolishness. Why should we be like this? I respect you, you respect me, and this, That is not actual respect. That is a very superficial. That will not solve anything. We have to come to a conclusion. So a person who understands that I'm not this body, I'm actually eternal, and I want eternal pleasure. I want eternal relationship. I want to understand God. Then he will inquire, yes, who is that God? Who is that God? And if someone wants to keep going in that material illusion, that I'm this body, and now the only aim of life is to satisfy my senses, and just because I want to satisfy my senses, I will now impede with the sense gratification of others, just like the animals. They also have right to have pleasure, right, to enjoy God's property. Why people are killing the animals? What kind of respect is that? You know, you see so many slaughterhouses being maintained daily. Millions of cows are being slaughtered. Yeah? So they also have right to live. Why are you impeding? You know, this is not any sort of human behavior. It's very uncivilized. So if someone wants to remain like that in this animalistic propensity, animalistic consciousness that my pleasure is the highest, and now I don't care about what others are thinking, I'm going to kick on their face, I'm going to kill them, I'm going to exploit them, and so on, then there's no question of discussing the absolute truth. So one must be, first of all, eligible for debating who is God. That is, in modern education, mind you, that is very much missing. You know, the students, they're not qualified to learn. They all want to learn. They pay some money for the fees, like I'm sure, you know, you have to pay some fees for the university, right? But that is taken as that is the qualification. He has the money, okay, now we can admit him. But is he actually sincere about solving the real problems of life? Is he ready to undertake some sacrifice? See, when we approach the absolute truth, we have to be ready to do some sacrifice. You know, if we're sincere, a real scientist, a real man of knowledge, he has to be ready to accept the truth even if it goes against his interest. Right? Not that, well, I'm going to research, and when I find out, oh, actually, if I understand this, then my whole life will be finished because, you know, my life is based on some misconception. Then I'm not interested. When I'm just at the border of understanding the real thing, then I realize, oh, okay, this will, you know, be this is a threat to my status quo. So then I stop in my research. That is not sincerity. You see, so the Vedic knowledge begins with atato brahma jigyasa, the inquisitiveness about the absolute. That must be there. One must be eligible. One must be sincere to undertake some sacrifice. You know, so in our Krishna consciousness movement, if one wants to be initiated as a disciple of this divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, our spiritual master, the founder of this Hare Krishna movement, he has to abstain from certain sinful activities.
Yeah, the four dharmas, I believe, right?
What is that?
The four dharmas, which is satyam, and then Sanskrit name, but purity, chastity.
He has to refrain from sinful activities, you know, sinful activities, illicit sex life, meat eating, intoxication, gambling, like that. He has to undertake some tapasya. And then he can be initiated, he can be admitted to the study of the Vedic literatures. Unless he is able to follow these, then he cannot understand this truth.
So does the initiate take a vow?
Yes.
Word Krishna, yes? What would be that vow?
Yeah, I just mentioned.
Okay, so those vows.
This is the vow, yes. And chant 16 rounds. We chant the Maha Mantra on the beats, chanting beats. So he has to be eligible like that. If he's not sincere, you know, to get out of the material existence, then he cannot understand. So immediately we say that, you know, don't waste your time, my friend. You know, it's like trying to lick the bottle of honey from the outside. So it's like that. So this is, in one sense, it's a science. So there's a theory there, but there's also what is called a vigyan, a realization of that science. So both, we teach both simultaneously. So anyone is welcome to come here and hear the theory, but if he wants to realize, then we give him the practical way of how to live also. You know, so that is very much missing in the materialistic education. There's just a theory, and there's no practical realization. You know, and that's why whatever knowledge these students acquire is ultimately useless.
It's information more than knowledge, usually. I find courses offer information, not knowledge, sadly.
Information, yes, that's right. So yes, so we're trying to fill up that gap that is missing in our educational system.
And on a daily basis, what does your sadhana, your daily practice, resemble to express the sacredness of Krishna?
Sorry, can you say it again?
On a daily basis, we have,
Yeah.
I believe you have a sadhana, a practice
Yes.
of devotion.
Yes.
What does that resemble as a devotee of Krishna? Because for me, that's what's really ambiguous, is how does one express the connection of sacredness on a daily basis, which is really the practice versus the theory.
Mm-hmm.
And through that practice, I believe we can find knowledge and understanding.
Yes.
So as a devotee of Krishna, what is your sadhana?
Yeah, 24 hours, think of Krishna. That is the aim. Always think of Krishna. That is real yoga.
So Krishna consciousness.
Krishna consciousness, 24 hours.
Literally, right?
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you know. And this chanting is so very nice, because you can chant any time, any place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even if you have a job, you can chant on your way to work, or you can chant in your mind, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And immediately you think of Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessary that you have to live in a temple. That is also a misunderstanding, you know. Yes, there are people who are able to fully dedicate to the preaching fields, preaching activities. But not that everyone now has to become a preacher. It's not dogmatic like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever propensity you have, let's say you have a propensity to build things, or you have a propensity to be a great scientist, chemist, or you want to do business, you continue with that, but dovetail the result of your activities in Krishna's service. That is the real sadhana.
And I believe you're a preacher in some way, right?
Yeah, you
I've
can
seen you
say.
all over Montreal,
Yeah.
always promoting and sharing Krishna consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So what made you decide to take this path versus, let's say, a layman path of just following Krishna without having that calling? I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So
Why not? Why not take up Krishna?
I don't know.
So then, why not take something that makes sense? If you don't know why not, then you take it up yourself. That's what I would say.
Oh, I have Krishna in me, for sure. I worship Shakti, Shiva, and Krishna, and Ganesha and all the others.
Mm-hmm.
But my path is on Shiva right now to understand the soul. Eventually, that will lead me higher.
Yeah, that is good. Shiva is actually the greatest devotee of Krishna.
I also see it in some way as the middle path, because we have, from the Vedas, we have the three initial paths, which is Vaishnava, Shaiva, and
Well, we're
Shakta.
following the Vedic
Mhm.
literatures. You know, it's mentioned that Shiva is the greatest devotee of Krishna.
Mhm.
He's meditating on Krishna. You know, and it's mentioned in the Vedic literatures that when Parvati had a conversation with Lord Shiva said that the greatest worship is to worship Krishna. But even greater than to worship Vishnu or Krishna is to worship a devotee of Krishna. A devotee of Krishna. That is even higher than that. Just like there's a saying, if you love me, love my dog. You know, so if we please the devotee of Krishna, then Krishna becomes obliged to us.
Because it's recognizing Krishna within the embodied of the devotee in some way. If I recognize Krishna through you, then I find Krishna in the material world. No?
No. That is the impersonal philosophy, but there's a misunderstanding. Just like you have the sun and the sunshine, right? So the sun and sunshine are one. There's no difference. When there is sun, there must be sunshine. And when there's sunshine, it must come from the sun. But at the same time, when you have sunshine coming here into this room, it doesn't mean that there's a sun planet in the room. Right? So at the same time, there's a difference. So we say our philosophy is Achinta Beda Beda Tattva, that simultaneously one and different. We're all Krishna, yes, true. I can recognize Krishna in you and him, whatever. But at the same time, Krishna is the whole and we're the parts and parcels. Just like a very common example is given that there's many rivers and they floating into the big ocean, right, and then merging into the ocean. So usually the impersonalistic philosophers, they say they merge and then it's all one. But our spiritual master says, yes, they are one, but at the same time, the living entities, the fish in these rivers, they're not finished. They retain their individual existence. So similarly, yes, you are Krishna, he's Krishna, everywhere. You know, everyone is Krishna. In quality. But Krishna, the Supreme, is Krishna in quality and quantity also. There's a qualitative, just like a drop of seawater. It contains the same ingredients like the big ocean, the salt, the water, like that, the oxygen, same ingredients. But the amount of salt in the drop and the amount of salt in the big ocean is a huge difference. So we're just like tiny little parts and parcels of Krishna. You know, and we have the same qualities. We're eternal, we're full of knowledge, we're full of blissfulness. But Krishna is the Supreme and we're the parts and parcels. This is the difference between the Vaishnava philosophy and the impersonal philosophy expounded by Sripad Shankaracharya.
So how did you come upon the path of a devotee of Krishna? I would assume that you weren't born.
Everyone is on the path of devotee of Krishna.
But how did you recognize the path? Because if we're all on it, some people are blind to the path, they're asleep. You know, we all walk from...
So why don't they wake up?
How did you wake up?
Well, it's not very difficult. You know, it's just a common sense. If I had a body of a small child in the past, and that body is finished, but I'm still existing, that means I am eternal. I'm eternal. So, and because I am eternal, then my engagement must be with eternal consciousness, eternal service. See, you say that, you know, what made you on this path? But I say everyone is on the path of Krishna because, first of all, we all have to serve someone. We all have to serve. This is actually the real definition of religion. Religion, you know, is understood as faith or belief, but our spiritual master explains that religion means eternal characteristic of every living entity. Just like, for example, the eternal characteristic of salt is salty taste, or chili, the pungency, or sugar, sweetness, right? These characteristics, they cannot be separated from the substance. So similarly, every living entity, his characteristic is that he has to serve.